Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Plant Free MD. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and today I have a very special guest, Mr. Andrew Rollins, who is going to tell us his story. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Very
It's an honor,
welcome.
really.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and obviously coming on telling your story. I think it's really important and helpful for people who may be suffering from something similar or know someone who does, and know that there's hope. So, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely hope, especially on the carnivore diet.
Good. Well, so for people who haven't come across you or your story, can you tell us a bit about you and a bit about your story?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Andrew. I live in Utah right now, and I'm 23 years old. I've had health issues for a lot of my life, but they started getting pretty serious when I was about 15 or 16. Um, I ate fairly healthy, and I always knew that it could be a little bit better, but I didn't know just as much how food affects your health. And when I started to change my diet, my health started to change around.
Very good. So what were some of the health issues that you had, if you're comfortable talking about them?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was sick a lot with different things. Like I would just get sick and it just wouldn't go away. They'd put me on antibiotics, and my gut biome just never really recovered, I think. So further into life, I just started to get really bad gut issues. That was where it started. And then respiratory problems followed. Um, Basically, just inflammation of multiple systems, respiratory and digestive. And then it started to affect other things like fatigue. And I started to have insomnia. My throat would just close up, and there was lots of irritation in the bronchioles and the throat, and it worked its way into my sinuses. So just breathing mainly was my main concern for the longest time. It felt like I was suffocating every second of every day, like I'm drowning at the bottom of a pool, like I'm breathing through like a coffee mixer, like those tiny little straws, and it's quite debilitating.
Jesus. Did they ever get a diagnosis on what exactly was going on?
Yeah, so they called it bronchitis originally, and they
Mm,
prescribed more antibiotics, which made it much worse, actually. And
mm,
even at the time, I didn't believe in antibiotics because my gut biome was already so messed up. But I trusted the experts, and
mm.
so did my mother, which I was only 15 at the time. So I was willing to go through the rounds, take the standard course of trying to treat it. So yeah, it was bronchitis, and then it was GERD, and then esophagitis and sinusitis. Just lots of inflammation going on.
Yeah, and then none of the treatments worked though. Is that right?
Yeah, none of them worked, and also I was very skeptical as well. And so some of the things I maybe didn't give a full chance, but I didn't see that it would cure me. I kept asking the doctors, like, okay, this inhaler might help a little bit with the swelling, but is it ever going to fix the problem? And every time I asked that question, they would say no with every treatment I was ever offered. But I knew that there was something more out there for me that actually could reverse my condition. I didn't want to just put a band aid on it. And in fact, a lot of these treatments come with their own side effects and just makes it worse in the long run, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, certainly some of them can, and that's the problem is some things are just symptomatic. I mean, if you have a really bad infection and your body's not clearing it, and then, antibiotics could actually fix the root problem, right? But there's the vast majority of medications that we put people on are, like you say, it's just a band-aid, just to cover something up of a problem that you're dealing with, as opposed to fixing the problem. Like you have your thyroid removed, giving someone thyroid hormone, like that is the fix. That's the underlying issue is that you don't have a functioning thyroid. So you've replaced that its function partially anyway. And so um, that's that's great. That's sort of there's some underlying root cause sort of medicine there, but good proportion of it, 90% or so, say, is just symptom management. And unfortunately, those are the tools that we have that we get taught as doctors is just symptom management because that's what the drug companies are putting out now, and the investment companies like Goldman Sachs, get mad at them when they actually cure something. Like Gilead, they actually had a cure for Hep C, and then Goldman Sachs sent them a memo saying that you messed up. You never cure anything. You want to treat things, treat the symptoms. Now you have all these people that will never require treatment for the rest of their life. You've lost 50 years of revenue on however many millions of people, and which is just a sick, twisted mentality, really. And
Right.
yeah, so unfortunately, doctors don't realize that. We just get taught what we get taught. And like these are the treatments. And the only reason I'm being taught this in medical school or taught this in residency is because this is the gold standard. This is the best we've figured out because we think that people are actually trying to find cures and find the best ways to help people because that is what used to happen. And it's been corrupted over the last, 70, 80 years. But it's yeah, it's unfortunately those are the tools we have
Yeah.
is symptom control and unfortunately and then also they don't know exactly what's going on, then how do you know exactly how to treat it or cure it if you don't even know sort of what's happening, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think just like many other industries, innovations are suppressed because it's much more profitable to slowly release new innovations than it is to do a quantum leap to something that's much
Mm,
more effective.
mm,
Progress is often hampered by the people that want to continue on their financial trajectory. So the medical industry is a business as much as it is um, trying to help people. I think if we were trying to help people, we'd be curing a lot more people of their diseases.
mhm. Yeah, and or at least looking for them, you know. Um, you know, doctors on the ground, I mean, I'm legitimately trying to help and cure people, but just working with the tools that we're provided and don't really think about it much past that. Like, well, this is the best treatment we have, and unfortunately, it's only symptomatic. But um, when you understand that these are designed to be symptomatic control and are not looking at root cause, then you have to sort of say, okay, well, that's their business model, and that's fine. So I'm not going to look for them for cures. I'm going to have to try and figure this out, or try to see who is actually looking for a cure. You mentioned that they sort of slowly release certain things. It's the same in most industries. In the car industry, I know that you know, some company will release a car and it's got, 300 horsepower and, 30 miles to the gallon and this and that and the other. And then the next year it's like 305 horsepower and 32 miles to the gallon. And like the next year it's just a bit up and a bit up and a bit up. And I spoke to someone in the automotive industry and they said, yeah, that fifth iteration, that's actually what the R&D team came up with first. But it was so much better than everything else that they actually like put put inhibitors on it and governors on it to make it worse. And so a lot of mechanics know that all you do is they already have these governors and these inhibitors on it. All you have to do is like to get more horsepower and better gas mileage and better performance out of your cars. You take off those governors and you take off those inhibitors, and all of a sudden you just got 20 more horsepower, things like that. And then they put in one chunk of R&D, and then they have 5 years of products that they can put out. Back in 2000, early 2000s, there was a company called Aptera, Aptera. It's still around. It's like Aptera 2. But back then, um, it was an aeronautical engineer, and he sort of looked at this and he said, it was right when the hybrids were coming out. Gas prices started going crazy, and like the best ones out there could get like 40 miles to the gallon, and people were like, "Wow, that's amazing!" And there was one car that was really expensive, like over $100,000 at the time. So that was super expensive. And and that got like 100 miles to the gallon or a little over 100 miles to the gallon, but it was really, really expensive. It was, not many people are going to be able to afford it. And so he said, that's not right, that we have the technology right now today, back in early 2000s, to make a car that gets 300 miles to the gallon and costs less than $30,000. And so he had this Aptera. So we made this thing, and it apparently did that. It had three wheels, two in the front, one in the back, because it had to be like a personal, you know, motor vehicle, something like that, like a motorcycle. Because when you have a new body design, it takes 6 years of crash tests to get that approved by the U.S. government, and so, but motorcycles only it was only 1 year. And so he had to do that, or else, because he said all these big automotive companies were just going to try to squash him, right? Because again, it's that quantum leap, and now they've all got to actually like compete with that now, but they don't want to. They want to slowly sort of build up. And and uh and so he said if he didn't get out in a year, he wouldn't be able to do it. I think they were starting to make some, but then it just sort of they weren't able to take off. But like it's still around, and they have like more vehicles like that. I don't know why they're not advertising, because if it's the case that they actually did this, they have a much better product than anybody else. And then like Intel, like the computers and things like that. There's the Intel processor, and it was way better than any other processor. And the Intel 2 came out, it was like twice as good. And Intel 3 came out, it was like next level again. First one they made was actually Intel 3. That was actually the Intel 1, but they just like knocked it back and made it worse. So that because it was so much better, they're like, no, 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 we can stretch this out for years. So yeah, unfortunately, and when you're doing that with healthcare, these are people's lives and their health and their happiness and their ability to function. And it's just absolutely wild to me that health is commoditized like that. And it's just another way to milk money out of people and just turn them into indentured servants and serfs. Where you're just these land barons are just sucking money out of the populace. It's absolutely sick to me.
Absolutely. It is. It's sickening. Um, it's selfish. I like to think about humanity as a whole, like that's my family. And so like if it's better for everyone, it's better for me. Um, but I think if you only think about yourself, then it's like, why do I need to make the planet a better place? I just need me and my family to have a better situation. So and it
Hmm.
really makes you wonder, like things like I'm sure you've heard of like the engine in a car that supposedly ran on water. It really makes you wonder if things like this might be possible. And then when they come out with certain scientists, if and then they might go, they just disappear mysteriously. Like it really makes you wonder if even in the medical industry, like there's cures for a lot of these things and they just vanish off the face of the earth. Because yeah, it's easier to just stay on the trajectory that you're on. Like you have these projections, and if something comes out that could destroy the entire industry, like why are we still using oil when there might be energy innovations out there that could destroy one of the biggest industries in the entire world? The people with that type of power are probably investing heavily into suppressing things that will topple that industry. So I think that humanity has always kind of taken the selfish route of we're not doing what's best for the good of all people. We're just doing what we can to stay the same and progress slowly.
Hmm.
So as far as curing people, I believe that there's many different ways to cure many different things, but I don't think you'll find them in traditional medicine, at least not in the USA for certain things. As far as I've learned, diet has helped me a lot with what I'm doing. I'm sure that there's certain things that diet can't fix completely. Um, but as far as like actually reversing a condition instead of just treating the symptoms, I think diet is the most important thing by far.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. So for a lot of things, yeah. I mean, going back to Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food. And before you try to cure someone, first ask them if they're willing to give up that which is making them sick. We're supposed to be healthy. Our bodies should work properly. They shouldn't just be breaking down. If they are, then it's likely there's an external exposure that's causing that. And there can be genetic factors, but typically you need a genetic predisposition and an environmental trigger. Very few things have 100% penetrance, where if you have that gene, you will get that condition. There are very few things that fit that criteria. Most other things are a mix. I mean, there's things that are purely environmental, like you get your arm cut off or something like that. I mean, there's nothing in your genes that are going to, predispose you to that unless you're just like an asshole. When it's just like, all right, well, this guy's probably likely to get his ass kicked sometime. But almost everything that we deal with from a health perspective is a combination of that. These diseases that we talk about are a combination of genetic predisposition and environmental trigger, or it's just purely environmental and we don't even realize it. And so, but you can be more susceptible or less susceptible to certain environmental triggers as well. So I think there's still a combination there. And so I think that root cause medicine is obviously the way we have to go, and understanding just how pertinent diet is to that is so important. But it does threaten massive industries, multi-trillion-dollar industries, because it threatens the processed food, plant-based industry that's giving you a bunch of junk food and packaged food that has a huge markup. They make a lot of money on. There's a very, very small margin on meat, like whole meat products. When you process and put a bunch of crap on it, then you have a bigger markup. And but just meat, like just steak and roast and ground beef or chicken or whatever, there's very small markup on that. And so, you're threatening that industry, but then you're also threatening the multi-trillion-dollar pharmaceutical industry and healthcare industry, where if people just aren't sick all the time, then we don't have to spend all this money. I mean, Harvard University School of Public Health, had a recent publication last, 10 years or so that they looked at just 5 chronic diseases. So, what was it? It was COPD, cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes in totality, and mental health issues. So not autoimmunity, not dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all these other sorts of things, like just those 5 that worldwide that accounted for, estimated at 2030 was going to be around $15 trillion a year in direct and indirect costs. And then lost opportunity costs, so people out of work and not able to function, they're taking sick days, or on disability, stuff like that. That cost between 2010 and 2030, something like $42 trillion out of the economy. And then the biggest one was the lost life. If someone has a heart attack at, 35, 45. People in India, vegetarians, are having heart attacks in their 20s and teens now. I have a guy I interviewed, Ankur Verma, he's an ER doctor there. He's getting these kids in their 20s having heart attacks and strokes, and they're vegetarians, vegans, and things like that. And it's like, you can't blame that on the meat. They eat 3 kilos of meat per person per year. And they're the sickest population on earth. They say America is. Absolutely not. I mean, we are very sick, but most other Western countries are exactly as sick as we are. And other places like India are far more sick than we are. And so, he's, seeing, yeah. all these heart attacks and strokes and things like that. Something like 1 in 4 people in India will die of a heart attack, and 1 in 3 men will die of a heart attack. Absolutely insane. And so the lost life, the cost of that lost life, someone dying in their prime and not being able to work for the next 40 years, that's costing, in 2010, it cost the planet economically about, I think it was $23 trillion a year. And then in 2030, it's estimated to be all the way up to like $43 trillion a year of just lost lives. These people are just dead. They're not in the economy anymore. They're not going to be able to produce and help and contribute. That's just for just those five, right? Not all the other things as well. So it's huge business. It's huge business. Um, the lost opportunity and the lost lives, obviously no one's making money on that, but that $14 trillion just in the direct and indirect costs, that's what is driving that entire thing. So, we're spending, call it $60 trillion a year, or losing that from the economy so that, this, specific industry can make $14 trillion a year. And the processed food, junk food, garbage, tobacco industry, alcohol, all that sort of stuff can make however many trillions that they make. It's a losing proposition. We're just destroying the planet. We're destroying the health of the world, and economically, we're just devastating us. I mean, no system on Earth is going to survive that for very long. When you lose all that human capital, and you get more and more people dependent and sick, like, to get back to your story, there was a period there that sounds like you were very sick, probably unlikely that you would be able to function normally, to work normally, to contribute normally. And as a result, you would be dependent on others, and in a lot of areas that's going to be dependent on the state. That now you're going to have to, people are going to be on disability, people are going to be on welfare and things like that, and that's going to put a larger and larger burden on the state to take care of people. And then when you get a surplus of people that are on disability and can't function, can't work properly, then there's not going to be enough other people to support that model. Things are going to crash. And so it's not a, yeah. Anyway, there's far-reaching sort of ramifications of this. But I was going to say, so, you know, it sounds horrible. I'm really sorry that you had to deal with that. What changed for you? How did you figure this out, that you could change this with diet? And what brought you to trying diet in the first place? And then, what happened as a result?
Yeah. So basically, following the traditional path just led me down a ton of different. Um, I was checked with this specialist and this medication, and they kept sending me to different people. It was
Mm.
almost like this person couldn't figure it out, and then they would just brush me off to someone else. And I realized really quickly, like, not only do they not care about me as a person because it's just their job, they don't really have enough time during the meeting to figure it out completely. And then you have to just keep going back. But that's like months at a time of suffering, not getting down to the bottom of it. So even getting into it, I knew that this was probably going to be the case for me. And I kept telling my mom the whole time, like, they're not going to help me. They don't care. They don't know how to help me. And like, it's not something like a broken arm where they could help me. Like for me, it was always a mystery illness with vague diagnoses, and the medications were like they tried to give me anxiety medication for my respiratory problems, and is because well, it's because they can be related for sure. So I see that one, but they wanted to keep giving me things that weren't necessary. And I would always go into these meetings like with expectations that we could figure something out together. But I'd be sitting there waiting for them to ask me the crucial lifestyle questions that they never would. How much sunlight do you get? How much exercise do you get? What is your diet like? What is your mental health like? What is your daily habits like? Never even a single time. How much water do you drink? Never even a single time. And so it was really frustrating for me. But yeah, so even going into it, I had no faith at all that they were going to be able to help me, because if you truly knew how to cure somebody, you'd be asking those questions. And I was never asked that even a single time. So during this whole process, I was trying different things and I was looking into different things on my own. It was an obligation for me that I had to cure myself because nobody else had the answers for me. And I'm sure that that could be different for other people with different things. It's not all bad. And some of the doctors, it seemed like they did care, but they really don't have the time to invest personally into me. I think it takes a real healer that's dedicated to you personally as an individual to like walk through your life with you and figure out what is causing this problem in the first place and get rid of it and then try to heal the disease that's the consequence of that. So I was looking into biology so that I could figure out what is actually happening inside of my body. And I was looking into supplementing plants and I thought I had deficiencies. I mean, of course, I had deficiencies. I was looking into what different types of things were attacking my system because, in my opinion, that's usually the case, whether it be a pathogen, a virus, a parasite, a fungus. I knew something was eating away at my mucosal membrane, the protective layer that's protecting the soft tissue of all these systems. And I knew that it was gone. And I knew that definitely the antibiotics didn't help. So I was taking pre and probiotics, changing my diet, supplementing, getting more exercise, doing meditation practice, just really just hitting just firing at all cylinders as much as I could, and really I didn't see much progress. Um, but along the journey, I learned much more about what it means to heal and what
Mhm.
was actually happening within me. Actually, about the same age that I got this disease, my little brother got the disease when he turned 15 as well. So I was 19 at the time, a couple years deep, and then he got it too. So that was a huge, like I was already super hopeless and it saved my life. The fact that now I had my best friend, my little brother to take care of and to help. I wanted to figure it out even more and he was there to help me figure it out. So it was honestly a blessing, although it was very painful to watch him get the same thing as me. To go a little bit into detail about like what I lived with and still some to this day, it was debilitating. I couldn't work and I had to drop out of school. I really never left the house. I laid in bed most of the day suffocating and
Mm.
it felt like someone was pouring battery acid down my throat because the acid reflux would come up and eat away at my
Mm.
throat and come up into my sinuses, and especially when I was sleeping because I couldn't do anything about it really. Although I tried their proton inhibitors, which honestly made it worse.
Mm.
It felt like my stomach was eating itself alive, like it was collapsing, and just suffocation all the time. But you don't want to just give up on life and just lay in bed all day. So when I would go out, I'd have to pretend like I was fine, just in order to like exist as a normal human being. I would just try to make up for how I was feeling by pretending and putting on a show like I was normal, but I'm suffering all the time. So it
Mm.
affects your relationships, it affects your work life, it affects your mental health. And so anybody out there that's suffering with chronic health issues, especially mystery ones, I can sympathize with you. And I promise you there is hope. And I promise you that there is a lot more people out there that know what it's like to go through the same thing, although that might not make you feel better. Uh, I can relate. And
Mm.
so meeting those types of people, reading about it online helps. And my little
Mhm.
brother getting the same condition as me helped a lot because now I could talk about it with somebody that actually understood and we figured it out together. We tried
Mm.
different diets. I think it started with just elimination diets. Definitely just all the processed garbage, and I went to vegan, alkaline vegan at some point. I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Sabi. Definitely worth looking into. I think he was curing a lot of people with a an alkaline diet that he said would create sustain environment in which things couldn't exist in with a high alkalinity, like very limiting diet of fruits and vegetables. But it's honestly just trying to mimic what the carnivore diet does much better. And I'm sure there's many deficiencies that come with a diet like that. But we tried that. We tried the medical medium diet. Um, and then eventually I had just given up completely and I just started giving back into my addictions because food is the biggest addiction. I don't know if a lot of people like look at it that way, but like addiction is what causes diseases. It's like you're cashing in on the health that you have for pleasure, and eventually it'll catch up to you. But if you sacrifice pleasure for health, eventually you can get back to
Mhm.
ground zero, hopefully. And then we found a carnivore diet at the end of the changing our diet all the time.
Mhm. Yeah, and what sort of changes did you see when you went carnivore, or with these other diets? I mean, I'm sure that just cutting out processed foods and things like that would have had some benefit. Did you see help along the way? Obviously, it didn't help enough, or you wouldn't have kept looking for new answers. But what were some of the changes that you saw with these different diets?
Yeah, so for instance, the Dr. Sabi diet, like hugely restrictive. And so because of that, obviously I wasn't getting as many toxins from the garbage that I would normally be
Mm,
eating on a regular diet. And so I would have less of everything. Basically, like a lot of my symptoms started to go away, but it didn't feel like the condition was actually reversing.
mhm,
But definitely having less toxins and less what it's like starches and grains, they're so hard to digest, some of them impossible to break down within the body. So I had less digestive problems. I tried intermittent fasting and I noticed my energy was much better when I wasn't eating all the time. I realized that if I was getting the things I needed, then everything after that was just part of the addiction. And so I started to find that balance with changing my diet all the time. And then finally getting on carnivore. Initially, very difficult, as you might imagine, um, for a regular human being eating just regular stuff. It was like first withdrawal, like strongest withdrawal I had ever experienced. I couldn't focus because my body wanted sugar, and that persisted for probably a week or so. But I could tell that I was detoxing. And anybody that's ever done a fast, it feels like fasting when you first eliminate everything. I went straight on to the lion diet, like Miss Michaela Peterson. And
mm,
so it was like a huge jump from what I was eating at the time. And so, yeah, withdrawal and then lack of energy, um, feeling all the toxins as they leave my body. And then finally, keto flu. Um, and that's the worst of it. And then after that, it was like everything started to change. All my inflammation started to wane. My energy level was not only consistent, but much higher than it ever been. My quality of sleep started to get much higher. All my digestive issues started to go away. I felt more light within my body. I felt like I was sharper without all the toxins in my brain. And there was more energy going towards things like getting ahead, like building more white blood cells, like all the things that happen when you're deep into a fast. I could feel them because I've practiced fasting.
mhm,
So immediately I started feeling the effects. And for about a month or two, it was going up rapidly, like my health and quality of life. And then I feel like I hit this wall where I was as healthy as I could be, except for like the long term inflammation that's still kind of going away. to this day. So I feel better every day. But it's just a little bit slower now because there's just like tissue damage that needs to be reversed still.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you mentioned that doctors never ask about, what you're eating, how much water you're drinking, are you getting outside, are you exercising? I think of those as just the basics. Those are just the basic principles. It's like, okay, did you get these right? Okay, that all looks fine. Okay, now we'll look at, okay, what is the problem that could be on top of that? It's like in sports, I was talking about, the fundamentals, the basics, in basketball, passing, dribbling, shooting. I mean, there's just the basics. I mean, you have to know these things. And then once you have all those things down, you can do the big fancy behind the back, you know, backflip dunk or something like that. But it's just like, you have to get the basics right. And if you don't have those fundamentals, your game is not going to be as good, and you're not going to be a top competitor. These are the basics of medicine. Are you treating your body in a way that is functional? Are you treating your body in the best way possible? If you're not, that's where you start, and you start treating it better. You cut out the junk. You start eating more nutritious food. Get outside, exercise, sleep properly, drink enough water, all these things. It's just the basics. And then your body's sort of working at a normal state and there's still this problem. Great. Okay. Let's see if there's a medicine or medication or a treatment that might be able to help that further. I mean, that's what medicine is supposed to be. It's supposed to be an addition, an add-on, to go further than our body's able to do just on its own. And but most people, and we've just been coddled and conditioned to look at medicine as a mainstay. That no, diet and lifestyle, that doesn't make any difference. It's just your body's just going to break down and get destroyed, and you just need medicine. You need these people to figure out a pill to fix your problem. Or people say, like, well, you have diabetes because you're eating all this crap. I was like, all right, well, I just want a pill. I'll just fix it. I was like, yeah, that doesn't work like that. That'd be like, yeah, I broke my arm. It's like, well, give me a pill, fix it. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. Stop breaking your damn arm. Like stop doing
Mhm.
stupid shit and breaking yourself. And those are the basics. Um, and I think more and more doctors are figuring that out. But I mean, literally, this is a 3,000-year-old concept. Roughly. I mean, this goes back to Hippocrates. I mean, this is one of the oldest sayings in medicine, like food be thy medicine, medicine thy food. And people just think of that as just some little trite saying, and it's just like, oh yeah, yeah, food, whatever, blah blah blah. That's just because they didn't have a booming pharmaceutical industry. They didn't know. No, that is the fundamentals of health. That's the fundamentals of medicine is making sure the diet and lifestyle are on point. In my practice, that's 95% of what I do, and it fixes 95% of the problems. Now, some people have malabsorption issues. They have other sorts of issues that preclude them from getting everything that they need just from their diet, or they have some sort of hormonal issue or some underlying condition. Maybe they don't have a thyroid, for instance. Okay, so there's other things that we can add that we can bolster their health with. And that's amazing that we have that. 100 years ago, your thyroid went out. That was it. You don't have thyroid hormone anymore, and you'd probably die. And so and get very sick anyway if you had a little bit. So there are amazing things that we can do and should use these medications and medicines responsibly, but those aren't the basics. Those are the slam dunk competitions at the end of the year. Like the basics are just, fundamentals on the court, the passing, shooting, setting picks, all these sorts of things, these very basic things. That's what food nutrition is. And you don't have that right, just, you know, you're not going to play well. It's not going to be good.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's no band-aid that'll fix it if the cut keeps getting worse. Like I
Yeah.
think people want to keep eating the way they're eating and get rid of their health problems at the same time. I'm often asked like, now that you feel a lot better, can you just go back to a regular diet? And the way I see it is, well, the regular diet is what got me here in the first place. It's the pleasure is not worth it.
Mm.
It's like, yeah, it's an addiction and it's a misdirect because people are told that food has nothing to do with it. I don't know why everyone has that thought in their head, but like the people that I talk to, it seems like they've never thought about it that way, that their diet is affecting their state of being. I think people are told that it's genetics. For the most part, it's just out of their control. And people love to hear that because then it's like, okay, I'm just a victim to this problem and it's not my fault. But then what you're doing is you're taking the ability out of your hands to change something about it. And so it's sad that it's not more widely known that the things that we eat are causing the state of our health today. But at the same time, it's because it's profitable for them to continue with their unhealthy eating habits. So it's hard. It's like we are sold the poison and then we're sold the cure to the poison by the almost the same industry, the Food and Drug Administration. There's a reason why those are grouped together because one causes the other. And if everybody practiced health and everybody cared about the well-being of themselves, their families, and all of humanity, then both those industries probably wouldn't even exist, or at least not in the form that we know them today.
Yeah. All these
Um,
global monsters. Yeah.
yeah, because really, I think what would be beneficial is the old model where you trade um, some of your skills for a cow with the local farmer down the street. It's so much more simple. Um, it's more effective. It's more cost efficient for you and the farmer, especially if there's no middleman. But obviously, that's not realistic for the society we have today. It's so large. We have to have like mass manufactured meat products. But me personally, I shop local. I have the ability to buy from a butcher right down the street, and I feel like it's tastier. It probably has less toxins. It's fresher. You can tell the quality when you shop local, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's also, yeah, it's also good to support, local farmers, ranchers, and butchers and things like that. Because if we don't support them, then, even we get everybody to realize how important carnivore is, and we don't have that infrastructure, because we haven't been supporting these small industries, then we're not going to have the supply that we need. Eventually they'll catch up though. But yeah, the thing is that I don't think that the pharmaceutical companies should look at this as a threat. I mean, of course they do. Like, oh, this is going to hurt our bottom line and blah blah blah. No, what it will do is force their innovation in a direction that will actually benefit humanity, as opposed to just covering up problems that shouldn't exist in the first place. It will say like, okay, well, these problems go away if you just change your diet. Right. Okay, well, what about the things that don't? What about these things that people are still suffering from? They're still having problems. Why don't we go that? Well, we're looking at, the longevity movement, things like that. I mean, that's big industry. People are spending a lot of money trying to biohack and things like that. Well, what if the actual pharmaceutical company, put millions of dollars into, large scale, trial to actually find out, does NMN, make certain health improvements, and can this, ostensibly extend life and things like that.
Hmm.
Obviously they want things that are patentable, so they're not going to sort of put money into something that anybody can then um, take their work and profit from. So I understand that, but it will drive things in a direction that is actually beneficial to humanity. And I mean, that's the whole point, is trying to just, I mean, with tens of trillions of dollars that are just going down the toilet, creating a problem and then treating a problem that you've created. And it doesn't even treat it, it just sort of mitigates it. And that is just such a dumb model. I mean, it makes these people money, but it's just a burden on society. Whereas if you took that money and you directed those tens of trillions of dollars every year, in a more useful direction, and you didn't have all those lost opportunity costs, and you didn't have all those early deaths stemming from this, and then had and loss of productivity for the next 30, 40 years, for each individual. I mean, think about that. I mean, think about how much human capital that we would have. Think about how much, cash, we would have. to go into directions that would actually benefit humanity. And people would say, "Hey, I want that. Yeah, let's do that." Yeah, I mean, it
Mm,
would just be insane what we could
yeah.
do. But that I think this is really stifled human innovation. I mean, we've come so far in the last, century, but we don't realize how much we've been held back at the same time. From from this sort of planned obsolescence, things breaking down, only like slowly coming up, like putting out the Intel 1 instead of the Intel 3 when you had it. Blocking things like Aptera from changing the game and all of a sudden having 400 miles to the gallon and all that sort of stuff. But also, with the food and drug companies, we're selling people poison and they're getting poisoned. And then we're selling the medication that sort of keeps them going, but they're miserable and they're not as productive, and they're just wasting money, because it's just forcing people to spend more and more of their money on, just staying alive and functional when they should have been healthy and functional the whole time anyway, and then they could use that money for something else. They could, God forbid, invest it and invest in their own future, or buy other things as well. So it's that has seriously held us back. And we're tens of trillions of dollars a year that we're spending on this stuff. And similar amounts going back decades, 40 years at least. And think about how much we could have done if that just actually went into like a fruitful direction, as opposed to just this, digging a hole and then filling it back up again. It's
Yeah.
just pointless. It's a pointless industry. And if we sorted that out and actually had a point to it, we would have massive, human innovation. And there's so much manpower, there's so many very smart people, and so much money behind this, dig a hole, fill it back up premise of healthcare that we have today. That a food and drug sort of industry now. That that if you actually put those very smart people and that money in like an actual useful direction, just let them go, it'd be amazing. It'd be absolutely
Yeah.
amazing what we would have come up with. I mean, yeah, we would have been like the Jetsons. The Jetsons, who was like this future people that were like living in
Mm,
these crazy high rises on Jupiter and just fly your car to Jupiter or back to Earth or something like that. That was supposed to be in 1997. I mean, what high hopes they had. And
mm,
maybe we would have had a lot more um, than we do now. But I think that what was that cartoon back in like the 60s or 60s, 70s? I don't
yeah,
know.
I remember the Jetsons. I was born in
Yeah.
2001, but it was still
Mhm.
airing on TV a little
So,
bit. I think
yeah.
your take on this situation is so interesting because it comes down to like a character issue that's within humanity itself. Like in every industry, in every society, it's almost like, let's take an example of like a small tribe. They're hunting with tools like sticks and spears and stuff, but then one man invents, let's say, a gun, but then the people selling the tools are like, okay, this gun is going to make us go bankrupt, so we need to suppress that technology. But there's the timeline that if they were to allow the innovation, the tribe itself as a whole would become so much more advanced so quickly that even for them, they would be richer and more prosperous than if they continued to have a monopoly selling sticks.
Mm.
So humanity is so focused on what's happening right in front of them that they can't see the future industries that are beyond when everybody's super healthy, they're like, we're gonna lose money because we can't sell them these pharmaceuticals. But it's like you were saying, there's other things to come when we get past these issues. There's more money to be made in new industries if we can just adapt, and it's not all about money. It's just about progress for humanity. Maybe it's just your family that you care about, or just you as an individual. But even for you as an individual, as the collective is allowed to progress in a free market without suppression, it's better for society as a whole, which will benefit you. So anybody out there that has this restrictive mindset of suppressing change because they think it's better the way it is, I think we always find a way to make something better. There's always going to be more prosperity in in a free market without manipulation, without suppression. If everybody was healthy, they would make less money on pharmaceuticals, but they would make more money in something else that's going to come along. Um, and as soon as we can get out of this mindset, then I think we will start to see the Jetsons. It's
Mhm.
probably already possible right now. I'm sure that we have all these technologies that could change everything if we weren't competing with the future by trying to maintain the present.
Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass fed and finished pasture raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys.
Mhm. Yeah. I sort of was thinking about that when you said that, like, um, the entire premise of the free market is it's just people just make their own choices. I mean, that's oh, capitalism. People don't understand what actually these things are. Everything's about money. These are different systems of economy or just different ways of generating money and using resources in a scarce environment and taking which resources you're going to use. Free market system uses those resources the most effectively out of any system that's ever been sort of come up with. And and the whole point about the free market is it is free. You're free to make your own decision. Mercantilism, have like the government sort of pushing monopolies and things like that. Something that China does. You have communism where the government just controls and micromanages everything. You do not have a choice in what's going on. The government chooses everything for you. Um, the free market, you have a choice. You don't have to buy that. You can buy that if you want or you don't want to. So the better product wins out. The better product at the better price wins out. And so you have to provide a really good product. And so it's forced altruism. Like you had for you in order in a true free market system, for you to make money, you have to provide something that's really beneficial to people that they are willing to pay you for over someone else, right? And so it's not about greed. No, communism is about greed. Mercantilism is about greed because the government's forcing certain things to win or lose. Um, and Free market is about providing things that are better, that people just choosing what they want. And so you can be the greediest person in the world. Doesn't matter if you don't have a good product. So it forces that greedy person who just wants to make a lot of money, it forces them to make a product that's really helpful and useful for people. That's the idea. And that's how people make the most money. The wealthiest people in history have done that. Rockefeller, the reason he had 92% of the market share for oil back in the 1800s was because he kept making the cost of oil and kerosene cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And that's why he had 92%. So, he had a monopoly. No, he did not have a monopoly because monopoly is that you have the market, you own the market, and then you start raising prices to gouge people. Prices were coming down when he had 92% of the market share. His Standard Oil, his company Standard Oil, in the early 1900s, so 30 years later, when they said, "No, you're a monopoly, we're gonna do this trust busting stuff under Taft," they only had like 27% of the market share.
Hmm.
So how's that a monopoly? And prices were still coming down. So it's the reason he had most of the market share is because he was making things better and better and better. So people went to him because it was an actual true free market. Um, Bill Gates, as crazy as he's gotten, he didn't get his money by stealing from people. Now he's done weird, crazy things since subsequently. But just Microsoft itself had to provide benefit. It, revolutionized, get brought about the personal computer revolution. He really was on the front end of that. And Bezos, all these other people. These are companies that have provided more benefit to people and allowed them to help their life somehow. And so they were willing to put their money into it. That's how you do that. Doesn't matter how greedy they are. It forces them to do something that's beneficial. Now, the problem is with the food and drug companies is that we're being told that this is really good for you and all that sort of stuff. And yes, people can choose to eat junk food and it's very addictive. And so when you're sort of given a choice of just a bunch of like heroin and cocaine in the store and you're told that it's totally fine, it's actually good for you. Like, yeah, absolutely. Get more of that. That's sort of what's happening now. And Pepsi and Coke and all these. Pepsi alone, I know they have something like a $2 billion marketing budget, like worldwide. So a lot of that goes into studies and into pushing their narrative. And that's why diet sodas, Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi have like a 4 star out of 5 star rating for as like a health food. So this is not only like it's not bad for you. It's actually a health food. It's super healthy for you. It's like, are you out of your mind? Like,
Hmm.
diet soda, that's a health food. Okay. But they pay money to sort of get these things recognized like that, because people look at that and go, oh, okay, it's good for me, and they fool themselves. And then the drug companies, they've manufactured that sense of altruism, right? If you provide things, if you make a product that provides benefit to people and they want it, they'll say, yes, I'm going to get that. But now you sort of have this forced situation where they sort of almost have to do it. So yes, you're providing benefit by getting these medications, by getting these immune suppressants for autoimmune conditions and diabetes medications and all that sort of stuff. But that need is only there because people are hurting themselves and damaging themselves, and you're not trying to fix a problem that people would say, yes, I want that hepatitis C, yes, let's cure that, whatever. It's like, no, no, we're just going to treat the hepatitis C for the rest of your life. And so they've sort of made this you know this this industry inside of a free market system that appears as if we need it, we want it, because, well, there's no other game in town. And so that is a monopoly, right? Because they don't have any competition. But now there is competition when people are saying, hey, just change the way you eat. These problems go away. You don't need that medication in the first place. And then people pointing this out saying, hey, you're only treating symptoms on purpose. And we don't want that. And we're not going to support that. And
Hmm.
and so we're going to go to this other thing and just not have the problem in the first place. And until you sort of sort yourself out, we're going to try to avoid you as much as possible. And so that's starting to happen, and I think that's why you see all these people attacking carnivore diet or attacking low carbohydrate diets, all these sorts of things, because it's a big business. Even
Hmm.
just the cereal companies, the processed food companies, they hate ketogenic diet movement because it just destroys their cereal sales, their sugary bullshit sales. And they pay off the American Heart Association to make claims that are completely unfounded. Going back to their inception, saying that seed oils and Crisco were good for your heart and that their direct competitors, butter and lard, were bad for your heart, based on no evidence whatsoever. They just made a statement. They got paid equivalent of $20 million for it. They they lied and said the Framingham study showed that increased cholesterol was associated with increased cardiovascular disease mortality rate, when in fact it showed the opposite, that lower cholesterol was associated with higher cardiovascular disease mortality rate. But the AHA's um, lie is what's taught in medical school right now, right?
Hmm.
40 years after the fact. And and then most recently, they're trying to get sodas taken off the SNAP program, the food stamp program in America. And because the number one product, they're like, oh, well, if somebody wants to enjoy, a soda every now and then, it's not the only thing they're buying, it's just every now and then they want to have it. It's a complete and utter lie, because the number one item that is bought on the SNAP program is sodas,
Huh.
right? Number one. And so that's billions. They're getting billions of dollars off the SNAP program. Um, and
Wow.
um, and so they're pushing really hard to keep their stranglehold on that. And so they again paid off the American Heart Association, or seemingly, because the American Heart Association sent representatives to these things going, we oppose this bill because this is about freedom of choice, and it's not actually addressing any underlying, health issues and concerns. And people were like, I never thought that I would ever hear the American Heart Association defending sodas and the SNAP program, whatever. They got such backlash from this. They were like, "Ooh, maybe we messed up here. We can't work in the dark and just bullshit people without them realizing it. People are waking up now." And so like, "Oh, that was a misunderstanding. You guys misunderstood what we're talking. We're actually very opposed to that. No, we don't support that." We're like, dude, you literally said point blank that, we oppose this bill and this should not be, you should not restrict it, whatever. It's just, but how much do you want to bet that that was paid, bought and paid for? I think that is the chances of that are 100%. And
Absolutely.
because that's just their MO. So they're trying to protect this industry and force people into a position where they don't feel they have a choice. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's what we need to break.
Yeah, and it's almost like we have a choice, but we are misinformed about what our choices are, and we have all the wrong information behind what choices we're making. So, is it really a free market when we're told by our own government the sodas are healthy for you?
Hmm.
And it's like it's a free market, but it's like people are choosing what they want, but they're making a decision based off of pleasure and not health. So, like, it's
Yeah,
what's
and told
better.
it's healthy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the food pyramid, like that was from the government directly. Like was I think Michelle Obama in the Obama administration, it's we're given this food pyramid of like this is biologically what we should be eating. These are your priorities. And if you look at like the list of like the healthy foods categorized, it's like Cheerios is like up there, like above eggs, above steak. So it's
Hmm.
like we are lied to and we're misinformed, and then there's also partnership between these corporations that are selling us this poison and our own government. So really, the mask has been pulled over our eyes because it's easier to make money selling addictive chemicals and processed things with higher margins than it is to have a healthy civilization. That whole industry would just go away. So if you follow the money, you find the truth, you realize that it was all set up this way, um, with selfish intentions. And that's why everyone's misled about what we should be eating. And if as long as they still feel good about eating this processed junk, then there's still money to be made. And then, like you said, there was actual precautions taken to prevent the carnivore diet from ever coming to be with misinformation. Um, Everybody always asks me, like, okay, when are you going to die? Like, when are you going to die of deficiencies on this carnivore diet? Like, how long can you do this until you just can't do it anymore? And I just laugh at them and I don't even know what to say because it's like there's just too much misinformation to fight. So I just like laugh it off and I'm like, yeah, like I just make some funny joke because it's just too much to even get into. Um, Everybody is just so misled and it's really not the fault of the individual, but like the system that we are part of, the experts that were taught by the guidelines created by the people that want to make money off of our being misled. It's really disgusting, and it almost makes you seem like a conspiracy theorist, talking about biology and talking about food and nutrition and health nowadays, because there's such extremes. There's no like clear answer. You either you trust the experts and you believe what I think most of society believes, and then every other opposing viewpoint is just a lie. Or if you're on an opposing viewpoint, then you see that the standard is a lie. And it's a war of information that goes so far beyond even health and the medical industry. But that's probably a conversation for another day.
I was going to ask as well, um, how are you now? How are you doing now? And how long has it been since you've been on carnivore, and how's it been going?
It's been going amazingly. I feel like it's a superpower. I would recommend to anyone listening to give it a try, but you got to get past the first 2 weeks. Just
Mhm.
jump straight into it and have faith. Watch all of Anthony Chaffee's videos, and you'll have enough information to get through it. I have so much energy and so much mental clarity, and I don't eat very often. I spend all my extra energy back into things that make my life better. I've traded pleasure for fulfillment. Um, all my addictions are gone. It built a discipline within me where now I'm focused on health and I'm focused on power, because my mindset has shifted. When you get rid of the most intense addiction, which is food, everything else seems to follow. Pretty much all my health issues are gone. I think my lungs are still healing. A lot of soft tissue damage, and a lot of that was my own fault. I used to smoke, um, do things that I shouldn't have done, definitely. But it really has changed my life. Probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. And my brother would say the same. My little brother went from never, ever, ever left the house, no matter what for. He had no friends because he couldn't go out. He had to drop out of school like myself and was suicidally depressed to now just I think 8 months later, he's doing door-to-door sales in a different state right now, like
Nice.
hustling, killing it, like better than more disciplined, more healthy than anyone I know. He went from on his deathbed to healthier than anyone I know purely
It's
because of the
amazing.
carnivore diet. So you literally saved both of our lives. And also thank you, Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson and Sean Baker, for doing what you do for this community and for humanity as a whole. People need to know these things, and perhaps your life it might be even in danger. I would hate to even put that thought in anyone's head, but like you are fighting against corruption in a way that is so heroic, and I could not be more grateful and more proud of you and your movement, and also Bobby Kennedy, really fighting against the lies about what we should be eating and trying to put a stop to that. So highly recommend the carnivore diet. It's really the only way to go, I think. Maybe a little bit of cheese sometimes and eggs, but it's really not that bad. It can be totally sustainable once you're a couple months into it. I don't crave anything ever. I look at things at the grocery store like it's a toy, like it's plastic, like it's not food. My body doesn't even recognize it as food anymore.
Mhm.
People always ask me like, is it sustainable? After a couple months, it is.
Well, and also, what was sustainable about the way you were eating before when you were sick and bedridden, couldn't breathe, felt like you were suffocating all day? How is that sustainable? He's like, oh, but what if you want to eat something nummy? Like, what, are you two? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, I'd way rather be able to breathe, thank you,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
be able to leave the house and not be bedridden and suicidal. That's not sustainable. I mean, Jesus, people think that there's like, that there's no alternative, that the alternatives don't exist, right? So you pick one way. Oh, but that's not sustainable. Okay, well, what happens then? Right? Okay, you stop doing this, and what's the alternative? Is that yeah, you're eating some bullshit cupcakes, and you're bedridden and can't breathe and want to die, or and may die. Like what is wrong with your brain? The only
yeah,
sustainable thing here is getting away from that and being healthy. It's blowing to me that people look at this and they see you and see how you were before, and they see how unhealthy you were and how miserable you were, and now you're healthy and you're out there and you're vibrant and you're going like, this is amazing, and you're shouting it off the rooftops, and they're just like, yeah, but how long is that gonna
yeah.
last? It's
It's
just like,
almost
well, it's obviously better than whatever the hell else I was doing. I can
Yeah,
tell you that.
yeah. It's almost like the heroin addicts are coming to me like don't you miss it? Like, are you gonna go back? Now that you're sober, like is it sustainable being sober? Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like it's very
Yeah.
sustainable. I feel much better. I'm not dying anymore.
Yeah.
It's truly a miracle.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Like there was that reminds me of a stand-up comedian, Nick Swardson, a really funny guy. And he had been like a pothead, things like that, smoked a lot of weed with his friends. And then one day he was just like, I was like, I gotta cut this out. I've just gotta, quit. And so he decided to quit pot, and all his like, pot smoking friends were like, wait, what? Like you're just quitting? Like you're done? Like, but you're gonna start again, right? Like, but
Mhm.
what? Like, oh, that sucks, man. He's like, yeah, it really sucks knowing where I left my keys, and like, and being able to actually like
Yeah.
do normal things throughout the day. Like, yeah, that really sucks. And it's the same thing. It's like, oh, but it's just like, what do you think is going on here? I mean, there's a reason that you've done this, and millions of people around the world are doing this now. That is massively improving their life. And they obviously felt that whatever the hell else was going on in their life, that was not sustainable, that was not working, that needed to stop, that had to go. And so they made a change. And then, you did a number of different things. It wasn't like you just, it's like these people make this claim, largely vegans, that the only benefit from carnivore diet is that you're just cutting out the junk food and that's it. No, that's projection is what it is. Because the only benefit to a vegan diet is you're cutting out the junk food. It's not cutting out meat. Cutting out meat does not provide benefit to your health by any stretch of the imagination. And by any metric, you cannot say that cutting out meat provides health. Cutting out all the other crap at the same time, that can provide benefit. But you did that. You already cut out the junk. You went to the crazy ass medical medium diet. I mean, like anytime you're getting medical advice from the voices inside your head, probably not a guy you should be listening to, right? I mean, he literally says that. He says he
Yeah.
gets his information from the spirit of compassion. Is the spirit
Yeah.
of compassion a dietitian or a doctor? Like, what's their qualifications besides being compassionate?
Yeah.
It's just like, and you're getting this, and this voice is speaking inside of their head, and you're just like, oh wow, yeah, like how is this guy so popular? That
Yeah.
blows my mind. And people are saying, oh my God, it's amazing. It's like you do understand that he's saying that he gets his information from voices inside of his head. Usually that gets people locked up,
Yeah.
right?
It's like a
And
religion.
yeah, well, but it's also crazy. It's like you're hearing voices and it's just telling you to do things. It's like, okay, are those voices in the room with us now? It's like,
Yeah.
is the spirit and compassion in here now? Do you see them? It's just like, I mean, this is a crazy person. So it's either, certifiably insane, should probably go on a ketogenic carnivore diet to help get rid of the voices in his head. Um, or he's a con artist.
Uh,
And I would probably bet the latter, you know. But for some reason, people look at that and they think like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get on this. It's
yeah.
wild. It's wild
Yeah.
to me.
Well,
But
that just shows like how desperate people are for like
yeah, there's that
something
true.
else.
Yeah. But but that's the thing, to your credit, you tried all these things. You went, medical medium, celery juice, diet and the alkaline vegetarian vegan sort of thing. You did all those things, and you saw exactly that. You saw some improvements, getting rid of the junk food and cleaning things up and getting some crap out, and fasting for periods of time. Like, wow, look at that, that's helping as well. So there's obviously something in your food that's causing this problem. If you can fast and stop eating, and those problems start to resolve, there's obviously something in the food that you're eating that's causing this and is the cause. And so trying to figure that out. And it just wasn't quite getting there. It was better, but it wasn't quite finished. And then you went carnivore, and that's what did it. I mean, so that's a very good demonstration of what's going on here. And and so I think that's really powerful, especially coming from how sick you were and how many things you tried already, and you landed on this because that was what actually gave you the most benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was one of your videos. I think it was an hour long, like why we are carnivores. You go through like biologically, societally, just everything. It just made so much sense to me. And just right then and there, my entire mindset shifted. And I think I've heard you say this before. It's not that meat is just some magical like cure to all diseases. It's that the body has the ability to heal anything within itself. You just have
Mhm.
to sustain a ketogenic state because that's when it really starts to do the work. So it's anybody that knows anything about fasting, like your body is fasting when you're not eating sugar. So I think it's truly miraculous what happens when you hop on the carnivore diet, especially if you understand what's happening within the body.
Yeah. Well, and also, yeah, I mean that's it's sort of funny, some people that are the detractors of a carnivore diet, I've heard them say, well, all a carnivore diet is really is it the only thing that is doing is just getting rid of things that are harmful. Like, yeah, that's the whole point. You just you're eating things that are harmful.
Hmm.
And eating only meat gets rid of those harmful things, right? Not eating
Right,
meat and vegetables. The vegetables have harmful things. There are other harmful
right.
things too, especially in processed garbage food. But it's not just that. There are people
Yeah.
on ketogenic diets. It's not even just carbohydrates. It's not even just seed oil. It's not even just whatever, because people can be on completely clean, omnivorous diets. They don't use seed oils. They don't use sugars. And they're unwell. They have autoimmune issues. They have, diabetes, and they go ketogenic, clean, no seed oils, all these sorts of things, massive improvements. A lot of things get better, and then, but they're still having autoimmune issues, and they're still having this, and they're still having that. And then they cut out the vegetables, just the vegetables, massive difference. Everything changes. That
Hmm.
I experienced that personally. And and so and then you sort of retrial in, okay, well, what about this seasoning? What about this? Nope, 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 absolutely not. That makes me feel like crap. It's pretty clear, and so that is 100% the entire point. So they're like, I go around saying to people, it's like, hey, you're eliminating out things that are harmful to your body. And then the detractors say, like, all the carnivore diet does is eliminate things that are harmful for your body. I'm like, yeah, idiot, that's the whole point. That's
Hmm.
exactly what we're talking about, because these things do
Yeah.
cause harm. And no one's saying that meat is like, ambrosia from the gods and things like that. It's just like a healing potion out of Zelda. It's like it's just nutrition. It's just giving your body what it needs. And when you give your body what it needs, and the nutrients and vitamins and minerals, and having a lack of those, having a paucity of vitamins and minerals can cause harm and disease long before you get like a full beriberi or deficiency that can be life threatening. Your body is curtailed. Your health is curtailed by just having a sort of a paucity of these things, just a lower level of these nutrients that you actually need. So getting the proper nutrients in the right proportion, that is beneficial. Your body can run properly, but it's as important what not to eat as what to eat. So it's two things. Just it's basic nutrition, just giving your body what it needs, and that's a steak. That's well, we need a balance. A balance of what? A balance of good and bad? No, you need a balance of nutrients, vitamins and minerals, proteins and fats that in the right proportions. And that's a steak, fatty meat, maybe a bit of organs every now and then. Not much. You don't need much. That is a balanced diet. And it's a perfect balance of all the nutrients you need. And then, just as importantly, you need to eliminate things that cause harm. And that's why we do this of just eating meat, because the meat gives us just what we need, and that provides benefit. And the other things cause harm to varying degrees, but they cause harm. And so, yeah, I was like, oh, all the carnivore diet does is just give you nutrition, and then get rid of things that harm you. Yep.
Very well
That's
said.
100%, and
And not
that's
only,
why we do it.
yeah, yeah. I've heard people say that. People say that to me all the time. You're just eliminating the toxins. I'm like, well, yeah, that's a lot of it. And but
Yeah.
also like I think
All,
you're
all you're doing
eliminating
is
the
getting rid of
things.
lead. You're just getting rid of that lead. You're not actually curing lead poisoning. You're just, getting rid of the lead. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, do you listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth? Like,
Yeah, and you're eliminating the food that these diseases feed off of, and so like you're actually starving them out once you get rid of the rest of the vegetables. I think Dr. Peterson was eating everything, slowly eliminate everything except for I think like kale or lettuce. So it's just steak and lettuce, and he still felt terrible. And so it's like, is it just the toxins in the lettuce that's making it feel terrible? No, it's that the lettuce had something in it that was able to keep alive the diseases that were attacking his body. And then once he got rid of that, they all started to die. Or at least that's my theory.
yeah. Well, and whatever the reason, it helped. And he got a lot of help by going, eating a lot of, fatty meat and being ketogenic and just eating, big salads and a steak. But as I remember the story, he said he was still having, crippling anxiety and massive health improvements in other regards, but still had this crippling anxiety. And his daughter, Michaela, went, just meat and water and, massively improved her condition. And then just said, like, well, this is stupid. Salads don't hurt me. Salads can't be bad for me. She had a salad and then bam, had a rheumatoid arthritis flare up the next day. And it was just like, Jesus. And so she, told her dad about it and just said, hey, why don't you just try this? Why don't you just try it for 30 days and see what happens? And he's just like, okay, yeah, screw it.
Mm.
And you said after about 3 weeks, his anxiety was gone. And he was salad was doing this to me? Like, what the hell? So, it's the thing, whatever the reason is, whatever the mechanism is, it's there. And, people are just seeing this massively. But that's always the thing. It's just like, you don't need a course, you don't need a program. I hate people that are trying to like, charge people $2,000 to like, do some shit. This is all available for free online. I mean, even with, my little course, like I try to make it as affordable as possible. And I tell people, look, this stuff's available online. The only thing that you're getting new from me or like the coaching groups, the Q&A sessions with me and with other experts and things like that, that can give you more sort of, guidance and more personalized care. Like that's it. Like all the information is available for free online as it should be, you know, because this is this is the world's sort of heritage. It is a fundamental right to just be healthy. Like we our birthright is to be healthy. We were born healthy with the ability to be healthy, with the potential to be healthy. The vast majority of us. And the vast majority of us are sick and unwell. So we're being robbed of our birthright. And so, it's not something I'm trying to profit off of. It's just like the people should know this. That's why all my videos are available for free. The only thing that we charge for is just more personalized time to help people on a more one-to-one or group basis. Like that's it. And it actually really, really bothers me when people take free information that I and others provide and usually get it wrong and tell people to do things like avoid fat and like fat's bad for you. It's like the same idea of just, well, fat's bad, fat makes you fat. It doesn't actually. It's the only macronutrient that doesn't make you fat. It's the only macronutrient that does not raise your insulin. And they say, oh, fat increases insulin. Like, and what biochemistry textbook did you learn that in? I doubt that you've ever opened one because it's not true. That's a verifiable falsehood, and they're charging thousands of dollars for information that I and others provide for free. This is the right of humanity, is to just be healthy and just to understand basic nutrition and basic health. And then on top of that, if you have a problem that can't be fixed by your own body healing it and just having proper nutrition, you're checking your nutrients like, oh crap, like even though I'm eating all this stuff, my B12 is still too low. Okay, well, it could be a malabsorption issue, pernicious anemia, something like that. I've diagnosed 3 people already with pernicious anemia because they're just eating beef and their B12 is too low, and then they're adding liver into that. And it's still too low. It's just not moving anywhere. And it's just like, okay, what's going on? You check them, and sure enough, they've got pernicious anemia. And they're going to have injections or sublingual B12, and that's just something you need to know. So that's something that testing and so on can help with. But after that, if you don't have those issues, you're just healthy. And then there's things that maybe you're on top of that, and that's what you need doctors for. But people should just be healthy. People deserve to just be healthy and deserve to know this. It's something that people inherently knew just through, the wisdom of the ages, like this is just meat is important, fat is important. And I've spoken to, Australian Aboriginals and, talking about, this sort of thing. And they're just like, yeah, well, that's always what it was. Like, my grandparents were always like really lean and strong and healthy. They just ate meat. Like that was it. They didn't eat any of this other stuff. And they told me that the most important part was the fat. And I was like, couldn't agree with you more. And so that's these native populations saying this is what we went for. We went for the fattiest bits. We went for the fattiest, healthiest animals to get, because the stronger, healthier an animal is, the more fat it's going to have on them. And they went for the fattiest parts as well. And that was always the prized part of it. So, it's this is just something that people deserve to know. And I think it's important to. I think that hopefully within my lifetime, hopefully within the next 10, 20 years, we can get people to the point that everyone just understands what healthy nutrition is, and people can just be healthy, and these chronic diseases will be largely a thing of the past, and we can get medicine back to where it was supposed to be, which was dealing with all the other things, and actually helping and benefiting humanity. And that's going to be a really interesting time, because then medical innovation is going to be able to move so far forward, and actually make true advances. Right now, the only advances that we make in medicine is these chronic diseases, because that's the mainstay of the issues that we deal with now. And so we're researching chronic diseases and what pill does this and what genetic factors and blah blah blah. It's just a waste of time, because if you just eat properly, 90% of them will go away. And so if we just fix that, then all of a sudden we have very different problems to face, and we can actually focus on those. We can actually focus on the problems that our body can't heal naturally, and better ways of healing from fractures, better ways of dealing with, aging populations and development, and different sort of developmental delays, and congenital issues, whatever. There's this We don't even know what the landscape will look like, because we have no idea what we're going to see, what's going to be sort of what's going to shake out and be left over, that we can actually go, oh, okay, well, this is what we're dealing with. And then you're going to have people, they can take those brilliant, innovative minds and actually go forward in a direction that actually benefits people past, just fixing the problem that we've already caused. And that's what I'm really looking forward to.
I would like to see that in my lifetime as well. I think it would change absolutely everything if
Mhm.
even 30% of this world went back to carnivore, which is
Mm.
what we are.
Be huge. Yeah. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your story, and also just talking. I sort of went on a few tangents, but I thought it was very interesting, and hopefully viewers did as well. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to your next video.
Yeah, not a problem. Are you on social media or anything like that? Is there anywhere people can follow you and see more of your story?
I don't go on social media
Good for you.
as an individual, but I release music. If anyone would like to check that out, that's kind of where I
Nice.
put my thoughts and my message. So maybe you can include a link in the description or something like that.
Yeah, where can that be found?
I have just released it onto Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, everything as Roga on my hat. And I just released my first
ROGA.
album, ROGA. I just released my first album. I
Nice.
recorded it in Vietnam, just barely finished it a month
In
ago. And
Vietnam.
yeah, I just got back from Asia.
Cool.
It was hard to do carnivore traveling around Asia, but yeah, I finished my album, got home, just barely released it. So that's where I kind of put my heart and my soul and my mind. So if you want more of
Nice.
that, check out the
Yeah.
album.
But we can definitely put a link for that. And what genre of music?
It's a mix between old school hip hop and psychedelic rock. If I had to put it into a genre, it's very poetic and existential. I'm way into philosophy, and it kind of has my worldview embedded inside of it.
Very cool. All right. Well, yeah, if you send me a link, I'd definitely put that up, and people can check that out in the description.
Cool.
Great.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you. Likewise.
Not a problem. And thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Hopefully, you enjoyed that and found it entertaining and hopefully helpful. And if anyone is sort of down and out and looking for sort of a way out of their situation, please send them this, or anybody else you think would be interested in this conversation. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next time.
Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.